Another interesting ground is that Atiku is requesting the Supreme Court to overturn all the findings and conclusions by the tribunal because they do not accurately represent the foundations of these petitions. So my question is, will you say this is a case of the tribunal judgment?
No, I wouldn't say that. But like I said, let's not get too entangled in the arguments of the parties at this time. Parties have argued, they filed. The trial court for a presidential election petition has reached a decision. Now it's time to either put a seal on it or throw it out. Let's wait, right? Well, the court has barely 70-something days to reach that decision.
I feel like it's interesting, or it's, I mean, good for you to say that, but we are not lawyers, so it's important for us to understand some of these things.
Well, the danger of the public perception of the decision of the Court of Appeal in this presidential election petition have been from the divergence of opinions that have permeated the petition, the proceedings, and the judgment. Because what you have is that people come and they forcefully, explain their points of view, what they think that the court should do, and what they do not think that the court should do. And then this builds on the minds of the populace, who now form allegiances, so to speak, as to what they expect the court to do. And so when the court now does its job, it's difficult to disabuse the minds of the people who have already formed, a mindset, so to speak, based on opinions. And which is why I'm very wary of, drawing the lines very clearly.
So if you say INEC deserves some knocks, where did you think INEC erred in this election?
So let's look at the elections. The elections were not perfect. There are things that could have been done better. And INEC needs to do better in terms of managing the processes. Reliance on technology. The bone of contention of the petitioners have been that you said you will transmit electronically. You said it was cast in stone. You said that's what you would do. And then you turned out to do the opposite. The courts are saying the Electoral Act does not obligate you to do what you have said you will do. But then there is a moral burden on you. And it is the failure to meet that moral burden that INEC must now ensure that it does not happen again. When you make a commitment to people, you stick to that commitment. And then our Electoral Act needs clear amendment of the prosecutorial aspects for electoral offenses. The problem we have in this country is a lack of consequences. And if you look at the process for prosecuting electoral offenders, it's actually, it puts the burden on the Attorney General of the state, right? And if we look at it, if you look at that, the Attorney Generals of states are card-carrying members of political parties of the states that they are in, because they are appointees of the governor. I think that it's important that the Act now go back to the drawing board, provide very clear provisions for prosecution of electoral offenders. When people know that there are consequences for electoral offenses, clearly laid out consequences, I think that we will have better behavior, right? But what does the Electoral Act say? The Electoral Act does not say that it must be perfect. It says there must be substantial compliance. Can you say that the last election did not meet that substantial compliance threshold? I doubt it. I do not think that any of the parties will say that, right? And so what are the challenges that have brought us here? Parties believe that in some places they were not allowed to vote. Some believe that in some places they were disenfranchised. If INEC did its job as it should, I doubt that the petitioners will be in court with as much litany of complaints as they have come, right? And that's why I say they need to look inward, right? They need to look at the modus operandi. We even need to rejig the entire system. You know, I was saying to Uncle Sam and Veronica, you know, before the elections, that look, we need to really look at technology and how we are relying on technology for our electoral processes, and understand that technology is a bespoke, you know, it has to be bespoke, right? Technology that works in America is not the technology that works here. But we have technology that we can deploy, you know, that work here. And I had said this. I said any technology that wants to rely on internet access may not be effective, because internet penetration in this country is still relatively low. Let's not use Lagos, Port Harcourt, and Abuja as a bubble. There are rural areas, you know. But if you decide to rely on SIM technology, I doubt that there's any part of this country where people do not have SIM cards and telephones. So I think that it's important that INEC sits down with, we have talent, right? We have technology talents. I work with startups. And I know very clearly, you know, that there are a lot of young talents, intelligent persons who can contribute to the automation of our electoral processes, you know, and prevent some of the shortcomings that we have faced in the last elections.
All right. So Obi's 51 ground of appeals at the Supreme Court. What's your view on this?
Sorry?
Obi's 51 grounds of appeal at the Supreme Court. What's your view on this?
I haven't looked at it, but I do not think that it will be too much of a departure from
the norm.
What Atiku and his team, Atiku's team, have filed. But like I said, and I repeat again, the Supreme Court's ruling on these matters will put finality to some of these issues, and that will ensure that we do not have certain things being litigated on, right? So it's good. It's good. Everybody must have their day in court, right? So the petitioners are within their legal rights to go to the court.
Right.
They have exercised that right. And so we look forward to the decision of the court. Will they be, you know, dismissing the appeal and upholding the decision of the Presidential Election Petition Court? Or will they be, you know, allowing the appeal and upturning that decision? It's for the justices to make.
Right. So, I mean, we're having this kind of conversation, so it's important for us to touch on this. And thankfully, you're a lawyer. What do you think is the danger of letting people heap criticism and threats on the judiciary?
Very wrong. Very wrong. You see, the judiciary remains the last hope of the common man, irrespective of what anybody says. Our courts, if the moment we lose that faith in the judiciary, we lose our consciousness and reliance on the law as a remedy to our issues. And so, do we want a place where might becomes right, or where abuse becomes the order of the day, or where extrajudicial avenues are utilized to resolve disputes? No. So the judiciary cannot be vilified. I do not support the bashing of the judiciary, not just because I am a lawyer, right, and I am obligated to uphold the tenets of justice and ensure that the instruments of justice and the institutions of justice are respected, but also because it leads to a dangerous precedent, right? And, you know, judges must be allowed to do their job. And judges are obligated to do their job judiciously, right? To ensure that justice is not only done, but manifestly seen to be done. But there is also a very thin line, and there's procedure. And so while we heap the blame on the courts and say, oh, you know, certain things have not been done, certain things have been done, people must also understand that there's something called process. There's something called the procedure, right? I mean, your studio today if I am not mic'd, you can't hear me, right? And if I do not follow certain protocol, it will be impossible for me to sit here, no matter what your intentions are, and no matter how beautiful or how intelligent or insightful what I'm saying would mean, right? Because I followed certain procedures as laid down by you. And so that's how courts work. And the public must understand that there are procedures to be followed when it comes to judicial issues. I do not support the vilification of the judiciary. Like every institution, there will be, certain members of the judiciary who may not, be carrying out their duties, at optimal level. But definitely the judiciary remains the last hope of the common man. And I do not think that it is right.
All right. Thank you so much.